Good morning, everyone. Today is Friday, and I believe it's July 28th, 2023. Here we go again. Hopefully, I got the date right. It's Friday. Who's coming on? Kathy, good morning. Good morning to you, and welcome to Friday. For those of you who work Monday through Friday, it's getting pretty exciting because all you got to do is get through today, and then you head off into the weekend and hope you have wonderful weekend plans ahead. And hopefully it cools down a little bit because it has been pretty hot the last few days, has it not? I tell you what, the facility that we're in is really hot. I walked off last night to go to the bathroom in the building next door, and it was a lot cooler. Why couldn't I have gotten into that building? But instead, it's hot box. And sales, the temperatures have been hot, and the sales have been cold. Frigid, you may say. Next couple days are going to be very important because it has been awful. I am now on a 2-game winning streak, and I'm perhaps looking at, after going 5-0 in Monticello, going 0-5 out here. It's just feeling that way right now. So prayers that things turn around. First year there? No, it's the second year. And it's really weird because last year, though, like I said, it's a really weird fair because it starts at 1:30 in the afternoon and goes until 10. And so I get through the afternoon, I can remember how dead it was. But then in the evening, then it picked up. It just has not picked up this year like it did last year. And then tomorrow we go 11 to 10. So I sure hope it gets a lot cooler tomorrow because 11 to 10 could be a very miserable day. And I hope the temperatures get cooler and the sales get hotter. Yeah, the heat's not helping because when you're not doing sales, the heat is even more miserable on you. I've got my fans, though. I tell you what, if I did not have my fans, I don't know if I'd be doing any sales at all. Because I've probably sold less than a handful of warmies in 2 days. And I haven't really sold very many fidgets, and I usually sell a lot of fidgets. It's just, but fans of what I've been selling. I'm the fan salesman, I guess. Anyway, so I got to mention this because I noticed this morning, and it makes me, I don't know, envious, jealous, or just disgusted. Here we've got a breaking story on SportsCenter, and the only reason why I even bring this stuff up is because I, of course, come onto Facebook to get to the messages, which I will do next. SportsCenter has, I guess this was 2 days ago. I didn't look to see how long ago it was. Does anybody know who Jaylen Brown is? I'll give you a gold star if you know who Jaylen Brown is. Because you know what? I don't recognize the name. But Jaylen Brown has signed, he re-upped. He has signed a 5-year contract. Well, basketball, but give me the team. 5 years, $304 million. If you do the math, that is over $60 million a year. How can one possibly pay one player $60 million a year? There you go. Bible Blues Brother Scott, we're going to give you the gold star. $60 million a year. What are your thoughts about that? For one player. That's not the team. That's one player. You think he knows God? uh, share your comments and thoughts below. Do you think he has a love for God, or is his love all about money? Because he's going to be, he could sleep in it. He could take a bath in it. He could, 60 million. I'll never see $60 million in my lifetime, let alone in 1 year. Oh, geez. One player, 60 million. Who's paying this? Who ultimately is paying for this? Is this where then you go to this you can't afford to go to the basketball game anymore, probably, because it probably costs $20-$30 to go. And then if you're going to get a good seat, you're going to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then, hey, can I have one of those hot dogs? Yeah, the hot dog's only $25. What? I'll pack my own. But of course, they'll watch to make sure you don't pack anything to come into the stadium, because they want you to buy everything there. But wait, I can't afford to. Anyway, let's get to something more positive than somebody getting paid $60 million. And I remember back in the 70s where people were freaking out about when the first baseball player made $1 million a year. Oh no, baseball player making $1 million a year. Now they probably make $1 million a day. Oh, let's see. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe $1 million a month. Oh, I need to go to the. Where am I going? I'm going to work, apparently, because I'm bringing up all the work stuff. Daily messages. Is this the same message? This is the same message as yesterday. There is no new message. So you get no. Wait, here we go. I got to go down one. There we go. Let us begin this weekend with God's love and grace being our guide. He has given us a new day. Let us make the most of today. Thank Him for all that comes with this day. I did a lot of thanking Him this morning when I was getting ready, even though I'm just kind of like, thank you. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for being with me. Things don't always go the way I want them to, but it always goes the way it needs to go. In the end, it'll all work out, though it will not work out the way I want it to. And I just need to be thankful for what I do have and who I do have in my life. I added all that. That's what I was thanking Him about this morning. Thank Him for all that comes with this day. Thank you for His words that come to us each day. Let us learn from them and let them come alive in our lives and actions. That's key right there. That's a very good point. Are we allowing His words, His guidance, His love to come alive? It's more than just a book with some great words in it and great wisdom. It doesn't do any good if it doesn't come alive in your life, if you don't put it into action. It means nothing otherwise. Each day we can study His words and learn from them, doing His will the best we can, helping others. We have the opportunity to speak about things in this world. Let us think first. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? And does it reflect love and grace? If not, let it be unsaid. That would do us good to think about that. I'm going to read that again. Let us think first. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? And does it reflect love and grace? If not, let it be unsaid. Let our conversation be pleasing to God. Let us reflect virtue in our lives and actions. It is made up of justice, honesty, discipline, courage, compassion, love, and kindness. These are the principles worth striving for. Each day, let us say prayers of gratitude, being thankful for the blessings and abundance that makes our lives richer, for the help and guidance that leads us to do God's will. Each day, we have the opportunity to meet with God in prayer and meditation, sharing our lives with Him and trusting in His divine presence in our lives. Walk with Him, surrender our lives to Him. And what we have to do is surrender our lives daily. That's what we need to do because of the bodies we walk in. We're in a situation in which we can't just surrender once and be done. Our lives are a continual surrender. Surrender to Him daily. Surrender to Him sometimes hourly and by the minute. Walk with Him. Surrender our lives to Him. Ask for strength to face the challenges of our day. Know that His Spirit accompanies us in today's journey and will help and guide us to overcome our daily challenges. When we surrender to God, it leads us to joy, peace, kindness, and love that only He can give. So if we don't feel joy, peace, kindness, and love, then perhaps we need to surrender. I think I wrote about that one time, that the whole idea is that what follows war? What follows war is always peace. So if you feel as though you have a battle going on in your life, or you feel like you're at war in this day, which is so easy because we're all going through this together. You know, we have our personal struggles, and then we have the struggles that go on within this nation. Life is not fair. We clearly see that living in these days. Clearly, when we see people making $60 million a year, something's wrong. We have politicians that are millionaires. How can public servants be so rich? Makes you wonder. They don't even have to go out and get a job anymore. All they got to do is serve in be a public servant for, a few years, and they're millionaires. How does this happen? Life is not fair. But what we realize is that even though life is not fair, and we feel as though things aren't going right in our lives, maybe because of what others do to us, or perhaps maybe the troubles we bring upon ourselves, all we need to do is surrender. And to surrender will lead to joy, peace, kindness, and love. Only He can give. Only He. We can't find it from someone else. Only He can give us truly what we need. Submission to God is our ultimate source of freedom. God's blessings on your day. Much love to each of you. Now, this was a very good message that I don't know if I can pull off. Well, I'm going to post it. I'm trying to post it. There, I got it posted. I did not post the credit because I have a hard time typing anything in. because my phone keeps blacking out when I try to do anything. So I got the message there. You know who it's from. It's not from me. Memories. Hey, there's the shirt I was wearing yesterday, just like I knew. But you know what? I switched it up this year. I incorporated this shirt, which I don't think I had incorporated in last year's routine. So I've already done myself differently. This is my new day three, my new day 3 shirt. Here's a little short message I wrote 6 years ago. Serve what you love with all your heart. There's Jetty taking a bath in the sink. Here is 8 years ago. Sometimes we are placed in a struggle that may seem to have no end in sight. Though these moments can be so very hard to endure, we must remain strong, as once we get beyond the dark clouds, we will have built an even greater resiliency than we had previously. We must always remember that when that breakthrough in the clouds appears, we will again experience life with even greater feelings of joy, relief, and gratefulness. So don't give up now, or you may miss out on experiencing that next great moment that is waiting for you just ahead. That was 8 years ago. Let's go back to where we began 9 years ago. We live in a society filled with excuses and blame. It is always easier for us to provide excuses as to why we are unable to do things, or if someone else tries to get something done, use them for the scapegoat when they fail and blame them for why things are so wrong in our life or why our country is heading in the wrong direction. The thing we must do is to take a good look at ourselves. For true happiness and peace in our life begins with ourselves. We must learn to love and respect others and establish inner peace, and then use that to reflect that to the world. In so many cases, people are waiting for others to provide this to them, and then only left to be disappointed and bitter for the fact that someone or the world has let them down. For it becomes so easy to blame something or someone else for our shortcomings instead of taking a look in the mirror and deciding what you can do to make yourself happy, and then what you can do to make a difference in this lifetime. We have all been placed here for a reason. So don't leave yourselves in a position where you leave your future and your true happiness and peace in the hands of others, as you will be left feeling frustrated, disgusted, or disappointed. It is time to grab the bull by the horns, drop the excuses why you can't accomplish something, and just make it happen. True happiness, love, contentment, and peace begins inside and spreads out. And if you are waiting for it to come from the outside in, you will only experience temporary glimpses of it. But then you will only be left with blaming something or someone else when things go south again. Stop the blaming, stop the excuses, and begin thinking about how you can be the solution to the problem. It all begins with taking control of your own life. So if you feel like life is out of control, begin there today. Just remember that happiness, peace, and love can all be yours. Make that change. So there you go. That was back in 2014. And so the thing was is that I was still pretty early in my cycle. I would add a little more to that because of course he is the key as well. Because yeah, we can't live life just like a victim. We have to be victorious. And we can understand that victory comes through him. And it is when we choose him that we will uh, uh, end up with ultimate victory. Will it mean that we'll be feeling victorious every day? No. Victory, what we do is we look forward to what is to come. It's not going to happen every day in these days. And if we're expecting someone else to make us happy, something else to make us happy, other than God the Father, we're right back to where I was before with the message that he wrote today. It's God that makes us happy. And to look to anyone else because the rest of us, we can bring happiness. I can bring happiness into your life, but there's going to be times in which you're not so happy with me. We may disagree on something. And I'm going to guess when we're disagreeing on something, you're not too happy with me. And you know what? If we're going, we can look and nitpick anybody. We all have faults. We are all failures. That's why we need God. And so if we're looking for someone or something other than God to make us happy, there's the big problem. I think that's enough for memories today. We better get going. We got a lot of room, a lot of stuff to cover. Story time. We're definitely only getting one story in today. And the story today is The King of the Mountain. Can someone do me a favor? I got Marcia that just texted me that wants the link. So can someone out there please send Marcia the link to our program right now? Because I saw Kathy was saying that she was missing Marcia. So Marcia must have just seen that message because she's saying, send me the link. So can someone please do that for me? Thank you. Back to story time. The descent from the mountaintop can be so painful. Just ask the old boxer. Sports writer Gary Smith interviewed him on one of the saddest sports specials ever aired. Too many blows to the head in too many fights over too many years had slurred the ex-champ's words. Those closest to him had begged him to get out of the ring, but he refused to stop until his crown was taken from him. Shuffling and shaking with tremors, the old boxer led the sports writer to a weathered barn behind his farmhouse. Photos, posters, and portraits showed the ex-champ in his prime, his sculpted arms raised, fists pumping in the air, and face glowing with unbridled exuberance. But the pictures were faded and covered with bird droppings. Pigeons now made their home where he had once trained. Shaking his head in embarrassment, the old champ shuffled slowly to the photos and turned them over one by one. He then limped to the door and stared off into the distance. The silence was eloquently painful in that barn. He turned to Smith and quietly slurred, I had the world, and it was nothing. Look now. Long ago, the champ did have the world. Most experts agree that Muhammad Ali was the greatest fighter ever to dance across the ring. He won the World Heavyweight Championship 3 times and was the most recognized athlete on the planet. His face appeared on the cover of Sports Illustrated more times than any other person. As long as he was floating like a butterfly and stinging like a bee, he commanded the limelight and mesmerized his adoring public with nonstop chatter. An entourage followed him in his wake, constantly stroking his king-size ego. Muhammad Ali was king of the mountain. As the interview ended, the champ was clearly worn out. Parkinson's was reducing him to uncontrollable tremors. His daughter said that it was time to take him back to the house. He shuffled out past pictures of the Thrilla in Manila and the Rope-a-Dope in Zaire, now faded and covered with pigeon droppings. It was too painful to watch. Mercifully, the cameras faded to a commercial featuring a new sports superstar plugging a product. But those haunting words still hung in the air. I had the world, and it wasn't nothing. Look now. Most of us know the King of the Mountain game. It's as primitive as it is brutal. The object is to get to the top of the pile. So we push, claw, and crawl to stand higher than anyone else. But getting to the top is a dubious victory. Already those below are trying to topple the king. Be careful when you hang those victory posters. Pigeons are making their nests in the rafters. You can learn a lot from the story of Muhammad Ali. You can learn even more from the king who came down from heaven's mountain as a suffering servant. He became a lamb and ended up the Lion of Judah. The greatest story ever told teaches us this: the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. The Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. Matthew chapter 20, verse 28. A very sad story, is it not? For us especially, we remember Muhammad Ali, and he seemed to have it all. 40 Days to Lasting Change, there we go. Got the book with. It's Friday. It's time to get to day 30. And Kathy has said this is going to be a very good chapter, so get ready, folks. Here we go. Getting past passivity. Imagine you're on a Hollywood set. The Academy Award winning director has positioned the cast just so. Cameras surround the scene on long swinging booms. Light towers are angled just right. There's a multi-million-dollar budget to ensure the highest quality production and an ensemble cast filled with A-list actors. They're at the peak of their craft, fully immersed in their characters, ready to deliver another moving performance. The second assistant camera raises the clapboard, opens it, and nothing happens. until he clacks the board and shouts action. Nothing happens. The cameras don't roll. The scene doesn't get shot. The movie isn't made. The story isn't told. Without action, the finest actors and filmmakers in the world can't make a movie. Without action, there can't be aha. And so this takes me back to before I move on with the rest. This when I read this, what it makes me think about, it makes me think about junior high. Scott and I went together to school at Jefferson. We were Jefferson Hillhawks. And what it makes me think about is I was in the marching band and we did parades. And I can remember it's very hilly. Where we went to school going up and down the hills, very hilly. And so we were out there practicing marching around Jefferson. And let's just say I was part of the drum corps and we kind of sometimes messed around. And I was the one that had to carry the bass drum. Oh, that weighs a little bit. And so I had that bass drum. And the bass drum, you think, well, it's just like boom, 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 boom. Do you know how important the bass drum is? When I screwed around, realized how important the bass drum was because it's establishing the beat. And so at times I would just go a little faster to see what would happen. And the conductor didn't like that because then the music's going too fast. You start banging on the drum a little too fast. The rest of the people start playing too fast. And so all of a sudden that boom, 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 boom becomes very important because it establishes the pace by which everybody goes. You get in the mark, and so you think, well, that's not a very important instrument. It is very important because it establishes the pace by which the music goes. And so you have to have the right beat. And so as you're marching with this drum, banging on it, you have to make sure. The strike going on in Hollywood now, timing. I guess there's no action. We've got a lot of A-list celebrities, but no action. It is an interesting irony about us as a society. We love action, but we would rather watch it than live it. We'll sit on the couch and order a pizza while we watch gourmet cooking shows. We'll watch a home improvement network for hours and then get ourselves a drink from a leaky faucet. We will watch the contestants on The Biggest Loser push themselves until they are completely exhausted. But when it's over, we don't want to get out of the lazy boy to get the remote control sitting across the room. That's why you got to make sure you put the remote right next to you. But yeah, very, very good points made here. We men, we especially love action movies. Try this, guys. How many movies have you seen in the last 6 months? I've seen quite a few, actually, but not a lot of action movies because I have shared usually the movies I'm watching, and I'm not watching a lot of action movies. How many of them were action movies? Not many. Uh-huh. We find inspiration in the fighter who refuses to quit, the embattled soldier who rushes the enemy, or the athlete who rallies the team against all odds. We've all got our favorites. Of course, everybody knows Braveheart and Gladiator are the greatest ever. I haven't seen either movie. I know I've heard of both movies, but I have not seen. I guess I don't get into a whole lot of action movies. There are some action movies I have seen, but not these. But there are some excellent superhero movies being made now, too. Although it seems that every superhero and his brother are getting their own movies these days. Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man, haven't seen those either. Just what is it about superheroes? Is it not enough to be a normal Indiana Jones or Jason Bourne anymore? Now, I have seen Indiana Jones and Jason Bourne. I have seen both of them. It seems now we want our heroes to have superpowers. We want to watch them fly or hurl buses and do all the hard work of saving the earth or human civilization. When we men witness that kind of action, something comes alive in us. When the movie ends, however, what do? Instead of fighting for our wife's honor, we just stand there and let our kids walk all over them. Instead of being passionate about our marriages, we get passionate about sports. Instead of fighting against temptation, we tap out and say it's too much. Instead of getting up, we recline in our lazy boys and flip through our 200 channels. What is it that keeps us from acting with greater sense of urgency? Instead of being aggressive, it seems more natural for us to respond passively. Even when everything is at stake, we kick back on the couch, waiting to see what happens, hoping everything will work itself out. It's interesting because it makes me think. Because what I usually do is, especially I have a very comfortable chair, I find myself doing the same thing. And so what happens is doing Posey and Jets is a lot of work. It's a lot more challenging than when I worked retail before because it's beyond management. It's ownership. It's ownership of something in which you put even more into it. It's about entering all the products in the system. It's about moving product from store to store, putting it where it'll sell best, doing payroll, doing sales reports, doing all kinds of things. It's a lot of work. And so I get up, I'm a morning person. And even here at the fair, I don't begin until 1:30 in the afternoon. But I spend my morning entering a new product, doing analysis. There is no day off as an owner. And so what happens is I go home. Sometimes it's pretty late at night and I'm tired. And so naturally, it's just so much easier to just get over into my comfy chair, sit down, and just try to veg out. I've realized that myself. And I don't know, I'm just reflecting. Passivity could be accurately described as the first sin we inherited from Adam. It may even be fair to say the first human sin wasn't eating the fruit, it was passivity. Remember when Eve took the fruit in the Garden of Eden? What was Adam doing? Well, according to Genesis 3:6, Adam was right there with her. She had a conversation with the serpent, and Adam just watched. He said nothing. He did nothing. He just stood there. That is really interesting because what was Adam doing while this conversation took place? The serpent was talking to Eve. And what if Adam would have just said, "Leave us alone, get out of here. Quit bugging my wife"? But he didn't. He allowed the serpent to come in and convince her. And then she convinced him to go against what God had said. But look where it got Adam, and contrast him to the prodigal son. The prodigal son didn't just hope his luck would change. He didn't wait for the famine to end and the economy to turn around. He came up with a plan of action. He said to himself, "I will set out and go back to my father and say to him." That's the opposite of saying, "I will sit down here. I will sit down, stay here, and hope for the best." Once the prodigal son had his awakening and got honest with himself, he chose action over passivity. We must do the same. We may not have superhero powers, but we have something better. We have the truer power of the Holy Spirit alive within us, helping us in our weakness, comforting us, and filling us with his strength. That's good. That is the end of chapter 30. And my aha. What are you hoping will work out by itself? It won't. Put aside passivity and take action to work it out. With the Lord's strength, I will. Gives a lot to think about. Next week, next Friday, we will be back at home again, and we will cover day 31, which says, obey anyway. That's the O of our shalom, obey anyway. That's next week. All right, let's get to our reading. We got to keep moving along. We're going to pick up an Old Testament reading, 2 Chronicles chapter 21, verse 1. When Jehoshaphat died, he was buried with his ancestors in the city of David. Then his son Jehoram became the next king. Jehoram's brothers, the other sons of Jehoshaphat, were Azariah, Jehiel, Zechariah, Azariahu, Michael, and Shephatiah. All these were sons of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah. Their father had given each of them valuable gifts of silver, gold, and costly items, and also some of Judah's fortified towns. However, he designated Jehoram as the next king because he was the oldest. But when Jehoram had become solidly established as king, he killed all his brothers and some of the other leaders of Judah. Jehoram was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 8 years. But Jehoram followed the example of the kings of Israel and was as wicked as King Ahab, for he had married one of Ahab's daughters. So Jehoram did what was evil in the Lord's sight, while killing all his brothers and leaders pretty much leads you to think which direction he's going to go. But the Lord did not want to destroy David's dynasty, for he had made a covenant with David and promised that his descendants would continue to rule, shining like a lamp forever. During Jehoram's reign, the Edomites revolted against Judah and crowned their own king. So Jehoram went out with his full army and all his chariots. The Edomites surrounded him and his chariot commanders, but he went out at night and attacked them under the cover of darkness, just like someone controlled by the enemy would. Doesn't it make you think about a lot of the people that do a lot of destruction in this country? They do it wearing masks in the dark of night, just like the cowards that they are. Even so, Edom had been independent from Judah to this day. The town of Libnah also revolted about that same time. All this happened because Jehoram had abandoned the Lord, the God of his ancestors. He had built pagan shrines in the hill country of Judah and had led the people of Jerusalem and Judah to give themselves to pagan gods and to go astray. Then Elijah the prophet wrote Jehoram this letter. This is what the Lord, the God of your ancestor David says. You have not followed the good example of your father Jehoshaphat or your grandfather King Asa of Judah. Instead, you have been as evil as the kings of Israel. You have led the people of Jerusalem and Judah to worship idols, just as King Ahab did in Israel. And you have even killed your own brothers, men who were better than you. So now the Lord is about to strike you, your people, your children, your wives, and all that is yours with a heavy blow. You yourself will suffer with a severe intestinal disease that will get worse each day until your bowels come out. That sounds disgusting. Then the Lord stirred up the Philistines and the Arabs who lived near the Ethiopians to attack Jehoram. They marched against Judah, broke down its defenses, and carried away everything of value in the royal palace, including the king's sons and his wives. Only his youngest son, Azahiah, was spared. After all this, the Lord struck Jehoram with an incurable intestinal disease. The disease grew worse and worse. At the end of 2 years, it caused his bowels to come out, and he died in agony. His people did not build a great funeral fire to honor him, as they had done for his ancestors. Jehoram was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 8 years. No one was sorry when he died. Isn't that sad? One that dies and no one has any feelings towards that person. They buried him in the city of David, but not in the royal cemetery. Then the people of Jerusalem made Azahiah, Jehoram's youngest son, their next king, since the marauding bands who came with the Arabs had killed all the older sons. So Azahiah, son of Jehoram, reigned as king of Judah. Azahiah was 22 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 1 year. His mother was Adaliah, a granddaughter of King Omri. Azahiah also followed the evil example of King Ahab's family, for his mother encouraged him in wrongdoing. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight, just as Ahab's family had done. They even became his advisors after the death of his father, and they led him to ruin. Following their evil advice, Azahiah joined Joram, the son of King Ahab of Israel, in his war against King Hazael of Aram at Ramoth Gilead. When the Arameans wounded Joram in battle, he returned to Jezreel to recover from the wounds he had received at Ramoth. Because Joram was wounded, King Azahiah of Judah went to Jezreel to visit him. But God had decided that this visit would be Azahiah's downfall. While he was there, Azahiah went out with Joram to meet Jehu, grandson of Nimshi, whom the Lord had appointed to destroy the dynasty of Ahab. While Jehu was executing judgment against the family of Ahab, he happened to meet some of Judah's officials and Azahiah's relatives who were traveling with Azahiah. So Jehu killed them all. Then Jehu's men searched for Azahiah, and they found him hiding in the city of Samaria. They brought him to Jehu, who killed him. Azahiah was given a decent burial because the people said he was the grandson of Jehoshaphat, a man who sought the Lord with all his heart. But none of the surviving members of Azahiah's family were capable of ruling the kingdom. When Athaliah, the mother of King Azahiah of Judah, learned that her son was dead, she began to destroy the rest of Judah's royal family. But Azahiah's sister, Jehosheba, the daughter of King Jehoram, took Azahiah's infant son, Joash, and stole him away from among the rest of the king's children who were about to be killed. She put Joash and his nurse in a bedroom. In this way, Jehosheba, wife of Jehoiada, the priest and sister of Azahiah, hid the child so Athaliah could not murder him. Joash remained hidden in the temple of God for 6 years while Athaliah ruled over the land. In the 7th year of Athaliah's reign, Jehoiada the priest decided to act. He summoned his courage and made a pact with 5 army commanders: Azariah, son of Jehoram, Ishmael, son of Jehohanan, and Azariah, son of Obed, Maaseiah, son of Adaliah, and Elishaphat, son of Zichri. These men traveled secretly throughout Judah and summoned the Levites and clan leaders in all the towns to come to Jerusalem. They all gathered at the temple of God, where they made a solemn pact with Joash, the young king. Jehoiada said to them, "Here is the king's son. The time has come for him to reign. The Lord had promised that a descendant of David would be our king. This is what you must do. When you priests and Levites come on duty on the Sabbath, a third of you will serve as gatekeepers. Another third will go over to the royal palace, and a final third will be at the foundation gate. Everyone else should stay in the courtyards of the Lord's temple. Remember, only the priests and Levites on duty may enter the temple of the Lord, for they are set apart as holy. The rest of the people must obey the Lord's instructions and stay outside. You Levites form a bodyguard around the king and keep your weapons in hand. Kill anyone who tries to enter the temple. Stay with the king wherever he goes." So the Levites and all the people of Judah did everything as Jehoiada the priest ordered. The commanders took charge of the men reporting for duty that Sabbath, as well as those who were going off duty. Jehoiada the priest did not let anyone go home after their shift ended. Then Jehoiada supplied the commanders with the spears and the large and small shields that had once belonged to King David and were stored in the temple of God. He stationed all the people around the king with their weapons ready. They formed a line from the south side of the temple around to the north side and all around the altar. Then Jehoiada and his sons brought out Joash, the king's son, placed the crown on his head, and presented him with a copy of God's laws. They anointed him and proclaimed him king, and everyone shouted, "Long live the king!" When Athaliah heard the noise of the people running and the shouts of praise to the king, she hurried to the Lord's temple to see what was happening. When she arrived, she saw the newly crowned king standing in his place of authority by the pillar at the temple entrance. The commanders and trumpeters were surrounding him, and people from all over the land were rejoicing and blowing trumpets. Singers with musical instruments were leading the people in a great celebration. When Athaliah saw this, she tore her clothes in despair and shouted, "Treason! Treason!" Then Jehoiada the priest ordered the commanders who were in charge of the troops, "Take her to the soldiers in front of the temple and kill anyone who tries to rescue her." For the priests had said, "She must not be killed in the temple of the Lord." So they seized her and led her out to the entrance of the horse gate on the palace grounds, and they killed her there. Then Jehoiada made a covenant between himself and the king and the people that they would be the Lord's people. And all the people went over to the temple of Baal and tore it down. They demolished the altars and smashed the idols, and they killed Mattan, the priest of Baal, in front of the altars. Jehoiada now put the priests and Levites in charge of the temple of the Lord, following all the directions given by David. He also commanded them to present burnt offerings to the Lord as prescribed by the law of Moses, and to sing and rejoice as David had instructed. He also stationed gatekeepers at the gates of the Lord's temple to keep out those who, for any reason, were ceremonially unclean. Then the commanders, nobles, rulers, and all the people of the land escorted the king from the temple of the Lord. They went through the upper gate and into the palace, and they seated the king on the royal throne. So all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was peaceful because Athaliah had been killed. Let's move on into New Testament reading. Today we continue on in the book of Romans, Romans chapter 11, verse 13. I am saying all this especially for you Gentiles. God has appointed me as an apostle to the Gentiles. I stress this, for I want somehow to make people of Israel jealous of what you Gentiles have, so I might save some of them. For since their rejection meant that God offered salvation to the rest of the world, their acceptance will be even more wonderful. It will be life for those who were dead. And since Abraham and the other patriarchs were holy, their descendants will also be holy, just as the entire batch of dough is holy, because the portion given as an offering is holy. For if the roots of a tree are holy, the branches will be too. But some of these branches from Abraham's tree, some of the people of Israel, have been broken off. And you Gentiles, who are branches from a wild olive tree, have been grafted in. So now you also received the blessing God had promised Abraham and his children, sharing in the rich nourishment from the root of God's special olive tree. But you must not brag about being grafted in to replace the branches that were broken off. You are just a branch, not the root. Well, you may say those branches were broken off to make room for me. Yes, but remember, those branches were broken off because they didn't believe in Christ. And you are there because you do believe. So don't think highly of yourself, but fear what could happen. For if God did not spare the original branches, he won't spare you either. Notice how God is both kind and severe. He is severe towards those who disobeyed, but kind to you if you continue to trust in his kindness. But if you stop trusting, you will also be cut off. And if the people of Israel turn from their unbelief, they will be grafted in again. For God has the power to graft them back into the tree. You by nature were a branch cut from a wild olive tree. So if God was willing to do something contrary to nature by grafting you into his cultivated tree, he will be far more eager to graft the original branches back into the tree where they belong. I want you to understand this mystery, dear brothers and sisters, so that you will not feel proud about yourselves. Some of the people of Israel have hard hearts, but this will last only until the full number of Gentiles comes to Christ. And so all Israel will be saved. As the scriptures say, the one who rescues will come from Jerusalem, and he will turn Israel away from ungodliness. And this is my covenant with them, that I will take away their sins. Many of the people of Israel are now enemies of the good news, and this benefits you Gentiles. Yet they are still the people he loves because he chose their ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. For God's gifts and his call can never be withdrawn. Once you Gentiles were rebels against God, but when the people of Israel rebelled against him, God was merciful to you instead. Now they are the rebels, and God's mercy has come to you so that they too will share in God's mercy. For God has imprisoned everyone in disobedience, so he could have mercy on everyone. Oh, how great are God's riches and wisdom and knowledge! How impossible it is for us to understand his decisions and his ways. For who can know the Lord's thoughts? Who knows enough to give him advice? And who has given him so much that he needs to pay it back? For everything comes from him and exists by his power and is intended for his glory. All glory to him forever. Amen. Psalm 122, verses 1 through 18. My God, why have you abandoned me? Why are you so far away when I groan for help? Every day I call to you, my God, but you do not answer. Every night I lift my voice, but I find no relief. Yet you are holy, enthroned on the praises of Israel. Our ancestors trusted in you, and you rescued them. They cried out to you and were saved. They trusted in you and were never disgraced. But I am a worm and not a man. I am scorned and despised by all. Everyone who sees me mocks me. They sneer and shake their heads, saying, Is this the one who relies on the Lord? Then let the Lord save him. If the Lord loves him so much, let the Lord rescue him. Yet you brought me safely from my mother's womb and led me to trust you at my mother's breast. I was thrust into your arms at my birth. You have been my God from the moment I was born. Do not stay so far from me, for trouble is near, and no one else can help me. My enemies surround me like a herd of bulls. Fierce bulls of Bashan have hemmed me in. Like lions, they open their jaws against me, roaring and tearing into their prey. My life is poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax, melting within me. My strength is dried up like sun-baked clay. My tongue sticks to the roof of my mouth. You have laid me in the dust and left me for dead. My enemies surround me like a pack of dogs. An evil gang closes in on me. They have pierced my hands and feet. I can count all my bones. My enemies stare at me and gloat. They divide my garments among themselves and throw dice for my clothing. Proverbs 20, verse 7. The godly walk with integrity. Blessed are their children who follow them. And I'm way over on time. So we will get right to the prayer and wrap up this week. This is the prayer for today, Friday, July 28th, 2023. When Shia Adam, an Islamic leader, saw a Christian helping people from different tribal and religious groups, he wondered why. The frontline worker told him, "This is what we've learned from Christ in the Bible." Adam wanted the same kind of good heart, so he committed his life to Jesus Christ. He invited the worker to his home, and 12 others gave their lives to Christ. Lord, thank you for the testimony of mercy. It is powerful. May your mercy continue flowing, a river of love that reaches all who need to know you. And in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. May we continue to do what we need to do, what we're called to do by God in these days ahead. It is not for us to have to try to do all the hard work to bring people to God, but rather what we do is we lead them to Him, and He does all the hard work. It's not about our success or failure. All we've got to realize is that if we do our part in leading people to Him, that is success right there. What they choose to do is what they choose to do. Our success and failure isn't based on how many people we bring to Christ and whether we are successful in doing it, but it's just a matter of doing it. Being active, not passive. Because if we don't actively do something, are we really accomplishing what His will is? That's a question to explore for this weekend. Take care. God bless. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend. And God willing, we'll be back with you come Monday morning. Until then.